Good evening. Once again, Amanda Knox and her Italian former boyfriend, Raffaele Sollecito, have been found guilty of the murder of Meredith Kercher in 2007. Appeal court judges in Italy have upheld convictions that were overturned in 2011 after Knox had spent 4 years in jail. Since then, she has been in the US, where she is now in Seattle. Tonight, in a statement, Amanda Knox said, "I'm frightened and saddened by this unjust verdict."
Per gli adempimenti di competenza, l'udienza è tolta.
Meredith Kercher's brother and sister were in court again today for the latest round in the battle for justice. Italian national Raffaele Sollecito, who was originally accused of her killing, was in court for retrial. But his former co-defendant, US citizen Amanda Knox, did not return to the country. In 2007, 21-year-old Meredith was found with her throat cut and more than 40 stab wounds in the flat in Perugia that she shared with them both. The pair were arrested days later and convicted in a 2009 trial, during which prosecutors sought to prove that Meredith had died during a sex game gone badly wrong. Rudy Guedo was sentenced to 16 years in prison for the crime at a separate trial.
Defendants for A, B, C and D are acquitted.
The conviction against Knox and Sollecito was overturned after concerns were raised about procedures used to gather DNA evidence. But last year, the Supreme Court quashed the acquittals, citing inconsistencies in the case. So whether Knox and Sollecito will appeal the decision or whether Knox will be extradited from the US. The Kercher family can only hope that at last they are closer to finding out the truth about what happened to Meredith. Well, The Guardian secured access to Amanda Knox as she awaited the verdict of the retrial. With her heart in her throat, she said. Simon Hatterson spoke to her.
A lot of the times when I'm interacting with somebody and they don't recognize me immediately and they ask me questions like, hey, so what major are you? Oh, I'm a creative writing major. They're like, oh, are you a senior? Are you a freshman? And I'm like, oh, I'm a senior. They're like, oh, how old are you? Oh, I'm 26. And they're like, oh, wow, what have you been doing to take so long? And I'm like, oh, well, I was studying abroad. Oh, really? Where were you studying abroad? Oh, in Italy. Oh, wow, that must have been awesome. I'm like, They're like, oh, explain. And I'm like, I was in prison.
How close do you think the Amanda from the tabloids, or the British tabloids in particular, was to you? There was this portrayal of me as being sex-obsessed and drug-addled and a manipulator and a liar and being in this like complete criminal control of myself and other people. And that is absolutely foreign to everything that I am. If I was a stranger coming to you and say, I know you, you're Amanda Knox, you murdered Meredith Kercher, what would be the 2 facts that you'd tell me, 2 or 3 facts that would make it impossible for you to have committed that crime?
Meredith was my friend, and I would never have done anything like that. No history of crime, like it's just not me. And 2, there's no trace of me in that room. So how would I have committed it? You cannot commit a murder and then like have all of this evidence, all of this blood everywhere, all of the evidence of the person who did it, and that not be me. And then say, oh yeah, I was the one who plunged the knife. It's impossible. It is literally impossible.
What would it mean to you if you were found guilty?
It would feel like a train wreck. There's not a lot I can do after this appeal. They would order my arrest and the Italian government would approach the American government and say, extradite her. And I don't know what would happen. I'm still counting on an acquittal.
And I don't know if this story is accurate, but I think it probably is, where you said, if they ask for me to return, if I am found guilty, I'm not going back there.
I'm not willingly going back, no. I'm not going to...
And the quote was, I'll be a fugitive.
Well, so what I said was, I'll technically be considered a fugitive. Yeah. I don't know what I'll do, though. I'm definitely not going back
willingly. They'll have to catch me and pull me back, kicking and screaming, into a prison that I don't deserve to be in.
Amanda's friend, Madison Paxton, moved to Perugia to support her when she was in prison. I'm on my way to see both of them at Amanda's flat. I want to see her with someone she trusts. Did you at any point in that first interrogation think you needed a lawyer?
I asked them if I needed a lawyer because I didn't understand if they were having a problem with me or if they were like, they made it seem like they knew that I had witnessed the murder and that I knew who the murderer was, and I just needed to tell them, and I either was lying or I had amnesia. And I definitely wasn't lying, and so I started to believe that I had amnesia because otherwise I could not make sense of what was happening to me.
What was that process? What was happening in your head? Can you remember?
Yeah, so it's a very specific process of how it worked. Like, I knew what I did that night. Like, I very clearly remembered what I did that night, and that I was with Raphael, that we had dinner, that we did what we always normally do on all the nights together. But then what they did was they started questioning me about that and making me doubt what I was telling them. So they said, okay, well, if you had dinner at this time, well, then what were you doing at this time? And so between 7 and 8, you're doing this, but what about between 8 and 9? And what about between 9 and 10? And and I kept telling them, look, I don't know what time I was doing things. All I can tell you is that, like, I left my house, me and Raphael went to his house, we were hanging out, listening to music, I read some Harry Potter, I don't even know, like, it was, like, I remember reading emails, like, we talked, we ate dinner, like, that's what we did, and I'm telling you this, but then, like, they made it seem like the fact that I couldn't chronologically put everything in order according to a time made it seem like I had something wrong with my memory, and they kept saying, well, if you can't remember what you did between 7 and 8 versus between 8 and 9, then there's something wrong with you, and you're lying, and we know that you're lying. And then they told me that Raphael said that I wasn't there, and that completely threw me off, because, like, I couldn't understand why he would say that.
Which also wasn't true.
Which also wasn't true. When I named Patrick, it was when I finally just broke, and I thought, oh my God, it must be true what they're saying. It must be true that I'm traumatized, and that I experienced whatever it is that it is. Like, I must have witnessed my friend's murder somehow, and I'm scared, and all of a sudden, like, that idea, like, it was already bad enough when I had to just go into the house and they asked me to identify, like, knives that could have killed her, and, like, and then all of a sudden the idea that, like, I must have witnessed it, and now I'm traumatized enough to, like, not even remember it, and, like, to all of a sudden be drawn into this, like, this horrible, like, idea of what happened was, like, so completely overwhelming that I just wept for I don't know how long. Like, I was delirious, and it was only after, like, they had all left and rushed off, and there was only one of them just kind of sitting there, like, eyeing me, making sure that I didn't do anything, and I was sitting there a long time and thinking like, trying to make sense of what just happened, and I felt horrible, and I didn't even know what to think anymore because I was so confused, and all I wanted was my mom. I kept asking, like, can I please call my mom? No. My mom is coming here. I need to talk to my mom. She was going to be arriving at the train station that morning. Like, I kept hearing my phone ring. They had the phone right in front of me on the desk, and it was my mom calling. I knew it was my mom calling, and she was going to freak out. I mean, it was bad enough, like, growing up when I, like, come home late from school and, like, she didn't know where I was. But, like, my friend had just been murdered, and now I'm not answering my cell phone, and, like, it's right there, and I want to answer it, and they tell me that I can't, and I'm freaking out, and I just want to talk to my mom.
I think one of the most difficult things for you has been, whatever the evidence has been, there's been no way of swaying Meredith's family.
The idea that they believe that justice for me automatically means injustice for Meredith horrifies me, because that is impossible for them to live with, and I hate that idea.
I think they've come around from thinking you were the killer to not thinking that, but they do think there was something that you knew, there was something that you were there. I know I've had so many people say this to me. And how do you think you overcome that? It can only be rooted in your confession, can't it?
Well, and I really believe that that's the case, that people think that there must be something wrong with me. Just like I thought for so long that there must be something wrong with me. Because how could anyone do that? But again, like, the only thing I can do is testify to what happened to me and hope that people could take a step back from their emotional investment and try to empathize.
Amanda Knox. Well, John Folane is the Rome correspondent for the Sunday Times and the author of Death in Perugia, an account of the Amanda Knox trial. John, first of all, are you surprised by the verdict or not?
To be honest, no, because when the Supreme Court ordered this new trial, it was actually pointing towards a conviction. It was tearing to shreds the previous acquittal, and the whole way this trial has gone was indicating that it was going towards a conviction. So
tonight, again, Amanda Knox is, by law, a killer. What do you think this has been like for the Kircher family? I mean, has it given them, do you think, today, will it have given them any sense of finality or not?
When I spoke to them after the last time that Amanda and Raffaele were convicted, they said, as they did this time, this is not a time to celebrate, and what's important to them is trying to find out what actually happened. Part of that for them is having a definitive ruling, because now this is not a definitive ruling, this is now going to go back to the Supreme Court. But to be honest, I'm not sure that an Italian court will manage to give the Kirchers a definite explanation of why, how Meredith died.
Well, as you heard there from Amanda Knox, you know, she is going to be kicking and screaming before she leaves America. She says that the Italians will now have put a warrant out, as it were, for her arrest. There is a very old, well, from the 80s, extradition agreement between America and Italy. Will that be automatic?
It's not automatic. It's pretty hard to predict, but in most cases, requests for extradition are met. There have been some exceptions. There were some CIA agents who kidnapped a Muslim cleric in Milan. The extradition was refused for them. In this case, it's a decision for John Kerry, the Secretary of State. There's quite a strong media campaign in the States for Amanda's innocence, which is now going to go into top gear to block the extradition. It's a choice for the Obama administration whether to disappoint an important ally like Italy or whether to go ahead with the extradition.
And as far as the media campaign is concerned, in Italy tonight, what has the response been from newspapers and television?
Well, it's a huge story here. It's going to be all over the front pages tomorrow morning. I think we can say that the coverage generally reflects the general belief in Italy for public opinion is that Amanda and Raffaele are guilty of having killed Meredith despite their protests of innocence. So how long a process will this now be? Several months. It's now going to go back to the Supreme Court. Then the Amanda and Raffaele will get another chance to argue their case. Difficult to predict these rulings, but given that the Supreme Court previously had, let's say, trashed the acquittal, it would be quite surprising if the Supreme Court suddenly went back on what it had ruled in previously, and so one could expect a new definitive conviction this time.
John Phelan, thank you very much indeed.